Most of Week 15 is in the books, and it started back on Thursday with an AFC West game between the Chargers and Raiders. And ladies and gentlemen, we got them. This was the final straw in the Brandon Staley era, as the Raiders would go on to put up 63 points and embarrass the Chargers in the process. A lot of people will mock Justin Herbert's career win-loss record, and the first game they played in 2023 without him, well, it wasn't pretty to say the least. I know this game was awful for Chargers fans, but it truly is a new beginning. There will be a ton of content on the Chargers and their future this offseason, and sure, this loss was embarrassing, but this is what Chargers fans have been wanting for a long time. The Staley part, not the 63 points given up part, of course. And for the Raiders, dare I say Super Bowl back on if they get some help from other AFC teams. And jokes aside, this was an absolute ass-kicking and probably the best game a lot of younger Raider fans have seen in their life. Allegiant was rocking, and for the Raiders' sake, I hope they win 2 of their final 3 games, and I hope AP is the head coach in 2024. I think he can be the guy for them, and I was glad to see them get a win after dropping the previous 3. What a win after getting shut out in Week 14. And we're on to Cincinnati for Vikings-Bengals, as Cincy would go on to win 27-24 in overtime. This was an extremely frustrating loss for the Vikings, as they were up 17-3 entering the 4th, and not only blew a 2-touchdown lead, but turned the ball over multiple times, and this was a very preventable loss. Ty Chandler and Jordan Addison both played great, but the decision at the end by KOC to go back-to-back tush pushes and have a 180-pound Brandon Powell be the pusher was, well, a joke. There was absolutely no reason for that, and if you want to seriously compete, you simply cannot do things like that in this situation. Put CJ Ham or Josh Oliver in. Hell, take one deep shot to Justin Jefferson, then try the push with a bigger guy. Anything but what happened. And for Cincy, enough credit cannot be given to Jake Browning for leading the comeback, and T. Higgins had one of the best plays of the entire year, and this was one hell of a game. Very stressful for both fan bases, but one hell of a game. This was a big revenge game for Jake Browning, as he was cut by the Vikings a few years ago, and it was good to see him get his revenge. Now, across Interstate 74 for Steelers-Colts, and it's been a tough few weeks for the Steelers. They've went from 7-4 to 7-7, and Mitch is awful. There's no yeah, but, or anything. The interception he threw with 6 minutes left in the 4th would be bad for a rookie, but for a 7th-year vet, it was inexcusable. He willingly threw off his back foot when the chances of winning were narrowing by the minute, and the pass sailed right into a DB's arms for the game-sealing interception. The decision to bring in Mason Rudolph with 2 minutes left like he was going to solve the Steelers' problems was also not great, and there's a lot wrong with the Steelers. Their final 3 games are against the Bengals, in Seattle, and against Baltimore, and I wouldn't doubt this team finishes 7-10. Right now, they are a bad football team. For Indy, they scored 30 unanswered and ran for 170 yards as a team without their starting running back. There was a point in this game where they were playing bully ball, and I cannot emphasize enough how much I like the future of the Indianapolis Colts. I really think Shane Steichen should be heavily considered for Coach of the Year, considering everything Indy has been through. They can win 11 games and get to the postseason, and with a good run game and playing sound defense, anything can happen in January. To the Motor City for Broncos-Lions, and an ugly loss doesn't come close to how bad this game was for Denver. And given this is a takeaway video for Week 15, it was obvious Denver was outmatched in this game, but what's important for them is this team was 1-5 and had every reason to fold and to give up on the 2023 season. But they didn't. And yes, this 25-point loss stinks, but their final 3 games are against the Patriots, Chargers, and Raiders, and they can finish the 23 season with a winning record, which is a huge step in the right direction. Denver has not had a winning season since 2016, so yes, this loss sucks, but even despite how bad the season has been at times, a winning record is possible. For the Lions, this was a huge win after a few shaky weeks. The Bears game on the road was tough, and the Saints game was closer than they would have liked, but Jared Goff throwing for 5 touchdowns and their tight end of the future in Sam Laporta catching 3 touchdowns is substantial, knowing they can clinch the North with a win against the Vikings in Week 16. This Lions team, the one that played against the Broncos, not the one that played the previous few games, was the one I believed in entering the year, and they have the potential to compete against the big dogs in the playoffs. This was a huge win for Detroit in what was a big bounce-back game. And on to Sunday, and the first game we will discuss from Sunday is Jets-Dolphins. Miami had several starters out, including Tyreek Hill, Javon Holland, Jalen Phillips, Connor Williams, and many others, and the Jets still lost by 30 points. Oh, and they were shut out. The Jets' offensive line was terrible in this game among many things, but the offensive line for the Jets was specifically bad. The quarterbacks had no time to throw, they averaged just 1.9 yards per carry when they ran the ball, and had just 103 yards of offense all day. Sure, Aaron Rodgers will make a little bit of a difference when or if he comes back, but he's not going to magically fix everything. It's not a poof, everything will magically fall into place. This is a bad situation, and for Miami, they took care of business against a bad team, and I specifically want to credit Jalen Waddle for stepping up with Tyreek out, as he went for over 140 yards and had a big touchdown in this game too. I can't wait for the Dolphins' next 3 games as they are on the screen, and the best part of the NFL season is just getting started. To Charlotte for Falcons Panthers, and losing to a 1-12 team is obviously bad, but it was pouring in this game, and with the Falcons' big bruising offensive line and with a shiny running back they took at number 8 overall, surely this would be a game where Bijan gets 25 carries and they ride Bijan to a win against a bad team, right? No, that makes too much sense, and Bijan had 8 total touches in this game and had just 2 more carries than a 32-year-old Cordero Patterson and quarterback Desmond Ridder, each, by the way, not put together. Atlanta was 4-3 through 7 games and are now 6-8, and some of those losses were to Will Levis, Josh Dobbs, Kyler Murray in his first game back off the ACL, the Bucs last week, and now the 1-12 Panthers. I think Arthur is out at the end of the year at most, and for good reason. Lifetime, he is 20-28 as a head coach, and the schedule they've had this year has not been difficult. For the Panthers, any win in the Bryce Young era at this point is good, even if it's a 9-7 win over the Falcons. And the Panthers had a 17-play, 85-yard, 7.5-minute game-winning drive as time expired. Yes, this year has sucked for Carolina, but anything to help build Bryce's confidence is huge for 2024 and beyond. Down to the Big Easy and scoring 6 points on the road and allowing 7 sacks as a team while your starting running back averages 1.6 yards per carry tells the entire story of the day. The Saints offense wasn't having the best day by any means, but the Saints defense was both playing good and the Giants receivers dropped some passes too. This was a classic case of a team that's won a few games recently that you may start to buy in a little bit and they come crashing back down to earth. The Gabagool and the Tommy stories were fun and they will be remembered for a long time, but Tommy is a backup NFL quarterback, and that's fine because this year has proven teams need backup quarterbacks. For the Saints, they're 7-7 and their final 3 games are against LA, Tampa, and Atlanta. The division is still very much in sight for them, and if they can manage to beat LA on Thursday, there is an outside chance this team enters the playoffs on a 5-game win streak. I don't want to get too far down the road and predict what would happen in a game that's 4 weeks away, but this was a good team win for the Saints, who very easily could have glanced over Tommy Cutlets. Now up to Nashville for Texans-Titans, and the Texans very sneakily pulled away a 19-16 win in overtime and improved to 8-6 on the year. Oh, and Ka'imi Fairburn drilled 2 50-plus yard field goals in this game. The Texans fan base was ecstatic to win this game, especially given the jerseys the Titans were wearing, and we're going to say this with a lot of AFC teams, but the playoff path for Houston is there. Their final 3 games are against Cleveland, Tennessee, and Indy. Now, I don't think they'll make it personally, but when it was do or die, D'Amico's boys came out on top, and this was with an ugly pick 6 from Case Keenum to put them down double digits early in the game. For Tennessee, where do we start with Tim Kelly? If you didn't watch this game, guys, Derrick Henry ran the ball 16 times and had 9 total rushing yards, and if you had him in fantasy, then you know. But this offense put up 9 points in a game they very much should have won. Anytime you get a defensive touchdown, the odds swing a lot in your favor to win, and Tennessee blew the opportunity. This was an all-time bad game from Tim Kelly, and the Titans amassed 204 total yards on 63 offensive plays. To Foxborough for Chiefs-Patriots, and despite the Chiefs winning by double digits, the receiving problems continued, and guys, there's average wide receivers, players that contribute, and there's Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. Kadarius contributed to another interception, and the reason this is brought up is because what do we think is going to happen in a few weeks? It seems like we are on an inevitable crash course for the Chiefs to lose a playoff game due to a critical drop or critical fumble due to the receivers. A win is a win, but there is a tremendous amount of concern with this team. For New England, Hunter Henry looked solid in this game and he was fed early, but the most important thing happened, and that of course is a loss. I've thought this for a little while now, but Christian Barmore is a very underrated player, and he was generating a ton of pressure in this game, and he made Mahomes look uncomfortable both early and often. To Lambeau for Bucs Packers, and this was one of the best games Baker Mayfield has played in his entire career. The Bucs put up 34 points on the road, and Baker threw for over 380 yards and 4 touchdowns, and the Bucs' postseason chances are very much alive. Their final 3 games are against the Jags, Saints, and Panthers, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Bucs win their 3rd straight division title. Oh, and Baker became the first visiting quarterback to ever have a perfect passer rating at Lambeau. I've said a lot about Todd Bowles in the past year, and I really hope he's turning things around, because this isn't the type of win we usually see from Tampa. I don't necessarily think he is, and that all of a sudden he is the coach of the future, but this was a nice turnaround for them. Now, for the Packers, their defense has underachieved for really over a decade now, and there's a reason this fan base wants Joe Barry gone. In the past 6 days, they've lost to Tommy DeVito and Baker Mayfield, while giving up 58 total points, and there's a reason for that. Quarterbacks don't accidentally have a perfect passer rating. Joe needs to go. Browns-Bears was a hell of a game as Cleveland would hold on to win, and Joe Flacco has thrown for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in each of the last 2 games, and the Browns are 2-0 in those games. They're 9-5, and their final 3 are against the Texans, Jets, and Bengals, and given they are 9-5, we are probably going to see Joe Flacco in the postseason, and nobody wants to play Big Game Joe as he elevates his game to another level in January. The Browns only allowed 236 yards in this game, and if they clean up their turnovers, well, they're going to be a tough out. David Njoku is killing it, and Amari Cooper had a big 4th quarter touchdown in this game. Cleveland can cause problems. Now, for the Bears, a tough loss doesn't begin to describe this one, especially with how the game ended, and given the fact they were up 17-7 with 3 turnovers, including a pick 6. This is a much larger discussion and merits a video on this topic alone, but I don't know how you can go into 2024 with Matt Eberflus as the head coach, knowing how they fumble games away with him, and have done so countless times. I think that would be my big takeaway for the Bears, because remember, this game should have never came down to the Hail Mary version of the double doink. To LA for Commanders Rams, and I think Kyren Williams is a very underrated player. Since he returned from injury in Week 12 versus Arizona, LA is 3-1 with their only loss coming against the Ravens, and he has 3 games with 110 or more rushing yards and 2 with 150 or more. They are a fun team to watch, and if I had a takeaway regarding their future, it would be I hope they get into the postseason because they will make noise. The only game I see them losing in the final 3 is against San Francisco, but this team can very easily play spoiler to a division champion. Now, for the Commanders, I would love to insert a video from The Sopranos when Sil says to Matt Bevilacqua at the executive card game, as he calls him cheese expletive, and that was a big part of the Commanders game in Week 15. Long snap issues from Cheeseman. Not only that, but Ron Rivera confirmed Sam Howell will be the QB1 moving forward, and with everything going on around this team, I don't think I've ever seen a team play more like their head coach is getting fired at the end of the year than the 2023 Washington Commanders. A little east to the desert for 49ers Cardinals, and this was the perfect Sunday for the 49ers. They took care of business, which they usually do. Dallas played like shit, and they clinched the NFC West. Brock Purdy threw for 4 touchdowns, and I said this earlier in the year, and especially after the Cowboys game, but when this team is on, this is a team that will not only win the Super Bowl, but be in the discussion for one of the best teams ever. And with everything the Cowboys and Eagles have went through over the past few weeks, I don't see how the 49ers won't at minimum be in Super Bowl 58. For Arizona, this team needs receivers in the absolute worst way, and this game showed that. Their receivers combined for 4 receptions in this game, and despite Arizona losing by 16, they scored the 2nd most points anybody has scored against the 49ers all year, and they ran for over 230 yards as a team. They have 2 first-round picks next year, and the groundwork is there for Arizona. It's going to be a couple of year rebuild, but give them an offseason or 2, and I think they will be just fine. Now to Western New York for Bills-Cowboys. The Cowboys suffered a 21-point loss, which was their worst loss since Week 5 in San Francisco. And they didn't just lose, they were absolutely manhandled. And if you would have said Josh Allen would throw for less than 100 yards in this game, you would have reasonably assumed that Buffalo got their asses kicked. But they ran for over 260 yards as a team and ran for 3 touchdowns and won with the score of 31-10. My biggest concern for this team moving forward is how they play when they're behind. This was not only a statement win for the Bills, but an eye-opening loss for Dallas, as everyone sees what can happen if you fully commit to running the ball. Jonathan Hankins being out also had an impact on this game. And Dallas plays the Lions next week, who have a good rushing attack with 2 guys in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. 3 of Dallas's 4 losses have been by double digits. And for Buffalo, they're 2-0 since their Week 13 bye with wins over the Chiefs and Cardinals. Buffalo being a wild card is a lot of teams' worst nightmare, and this can very easily be a case of a team clicking at the right time. It's a statement win in all caps to beat a playoff team by 3 touchdowns and for your MVP caliber quarterback to throw for just 94 yards. Buffalo is back, and they will make noise in the AFC. The Week 16 and 17 recaps will be live after the Sunday night game on Christmas and New Year's Eve, and I hope I see you guys there. My Patreon is also in the description if you are interested in supporting, and I hope you enjoyed the recap, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 31% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.